Okay, apparently we're live, and we have been warned not to do this stream by someone. We won't mention who, but anyway, this is about a conversation I had yesterday with Anthony Maurice, Tony, and my impression of the whole thing. And then there was an after show that illogical, implausible, and probably wrong did, where he came up some really interesting points that I think we ought to go over later, but it indicates a failure to communicate, which is kind of interesting. Yeah. But we started out with me asking Tony what his criticism of abiogenesis research was. And I think it was, the Fosrana thing and everybody's criticism, James Tour, everybody seems to be, that we shouldn't use controlled experiments, but rather as Tony put it, put all of the random chemicals in a flask and wait. And I asked what would Tony do, and I have links and we'll go through the video. But he said he would put all the life-friendly molecules in a test tube and see if they self-assemble, which I think is a pretty great misunderstanding. But so I went a little further. And then he presented these slides. Clemens Richard did an opinion piece in an article, and I do have that pulled up in another tab, and we can look at it. And this is just an excerpt from the article, but the article, this is on their, Reasons to Believe site. And they just quoted the article. And there's a whole lot more in here. And what Richard does this research. He works on this RNA synthesis, and he's kind of an RNA world proponent. And he was making the point that we have to do it this way. So they were kind of implying that Richard was saying the opposite of what Richard is actually saying, which leads me to the failure to communicate, and which will lead us later to logical, plausible, and probable. And what he said, which is quite surprising, because they will say the same things about us that we will say about them. And it is clear that we're living in two entirely different worlds. It's very odd to me, hard to understand. And then he put up this James Tour, James Tour is kind of a talking head for the ID community, and he's become very vocal. And I discount them. But then Smokey moved to metaphysics right away, or not Smokey, but Tony and Smokey were trying to move me into metaphysics. And we'll get into that, and ask me for a philosophical argument, basically. And let's see, here's where Smokey, if I could run both at the same time with this presentation, but I've got a clip where Smokey puts his metaphysics into the science. And what they really want for us is to yield to a belief in God. Let's see, demonstrated through science will never get life. Our time. Oh yeah, they make a point that our time is up. That we've been doing abiogenesis research for years and years and years, and we haven't proved it yet. Therefore, God. So we are not proving that God doesn't exist. So no progress. Which I don't know. Anyway, so then I was trying to nail Tony down on something he said. He basically implied that we should throw all these chemicals in a tube and wait, and that we shouldn't fine-tune the condition at all. And what I was trying to make a point of is that there were quadrillions or quintillions of microstates on the planet for 200 million years, and every one of those represented a different node in a graph, and every one of those would represent an abiogenesis experiment. And so I think, let's say I come up with pudding back here. I'm not sure where my pudding video is. But anyway, I came up with pudding. And I said, Tony, are you suggesting that it's pudding, that the Earth was one big homogeneous, chocolate pudding or something, or abio pudding that had all of these components in it, and that's how life developed? And that is just a ridiculous criticism. Well, then we got into the philosophy, and they were asking me if I had evidence for naturalism, and that's where I took the bait and I went off track and started talking about philosophy. And the point I wanted to make is that if you have a seed and you put it in the ground, it develops into broccoli or an oak tree or whatever, and it does that without any intelligent design or intelligent intervention. And Tony kept saying, where did the seed come from? Where did the seed come from? So I asked him to bracket it. And bracketing in philosophy is where you agree to ignore outside of what you're talking about, and you talk about just this one thing. So I wanted to talk about what happens in our everyday life, that there is no supernatural intervention in our everyday life, and that is evidence for naturalism, and they don't seem to believe that. So they asked me for evidence for naturalism, and then Tony said it was a debate, and he rage quit, basically. So he couldn't have it. And then we went on with Smokey, with pudding and things not being homogeneous and goop in a jar, and the problem of the fudge in the pudding. And then Smokey, I managed to steer him back into abiogenesis. He mentioned chirality, and then he started going on about law of the excluded middle. We got back into supernaturalism and all that garbage. And I don't know where. And then, they kept asking me, what is your proof? And I said, we're never going to know. I don't know. And then I started explaining my graph theory, which is something that I can get into a little bit, but it's how I explain how we're approaching the problem of abiogenesis and how we're trying to figure out what happened in early life and whether or not it could happen. And then Smokey kept saying that I'm straw man, or that I'm ad homing these people, because I won't believe James Tour. I won't believe Dr. Jensen. I won't believe Tompkins. I won't believe Sanford. They all make a living lying for Jesus. And I am not going to take anything that they say. Tour is going around shooting his mouth off on the talk circuit and getting his fame that way. And I am not buying anything they say, because they are putting the metaphysics into the science. And I was not doing that. I was not claiming that we knew that there was no God because of the science. I was defending the science of abiogenesis, and they misunderstood completely what I was doing in that talk yesterday. And I misunderstood, I think, what I was walking into. So I'm not sure how much Smokey knows that no experiment is addressing the conditions of early life. So Smokey knows that science has proved that abiogenesis can happen, which was a pretty broad claim. And he knows because of Foz and Tour and Hugh Ross and Ken Samples and a dozen others. And then I said, I told him that I'm not believing any of these people because their belief is right up front. And you cannot get around that. They're ID believers. So is David Abel and D'Onofrio and all the others. And then Smokey said, you stepped in it, and I'm not sure where to go. Then I showed him my stack of books. And admitted that I have not read all these books. I read that one, and I read that one, and spotted through, most of the others. And I read, this one, and I read pieces of it. But I asked them to read the damn books. This is my short stack of books that you need to read before you shoot your mouth off about abiogenesis. And I should have read them all too, but I haven't. But there's some really good books here. That get into a lot of different theories on abiogenesis. And they asked me what my favorite theory was and what my strongest evidence was. I don't have one. I like them all. I think they're all great books. So I'm not sure. Oh, and then the Maddox did his after show. Now he's going to do a takedown video today on my conversation yesterday. So that is going to be fun to watch. Maddox gets his stupid on. He normally does. And I think that's all I got there. So, the conversation. Let me see if I can stop. StreamYard really needs to get better. I mean, this is bad. This is horrible. Sorry, can't talk right now. There we go. Okay, let's see. Did I stop that? Yep, I did. So you guys with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to share a Chrome tab. I do have my sound right. I got my mind right there, Immutable. I got my mind right. I'm checking the box.
Are you about to play the Maddox stream?
Yeah, should I do the Maddox stream first? Because this is a really interesting part. But no, I'm not going to play the whole stream. Atheism is just a mental disorder. So let's take a look at that for a minute. The Maddox stream. Let's see here. Okay, we got it. Let's see if you guys can hear it. I wanted to go to this. Let's see. He's an expert. Papers. Okay, at this part.
There was this one episode Ian had on the.
Are we good on sound?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was this one episode Ian had on the Niagara Falls, and he linked a report, which I read from top to bottom, and that actual report supported Ian rather than refuted him. And I pointed out all these various sections of the report where the author wrote this, and I just found it so funny. This guy's a total idiot. Really, he's a total idiot.
Are they talking about Ian Chin?
Things like that.
They were talking about Ian Juvie and some guy that's criticizing him.
Mm-hmm.
And then prior to that, Maddox had to say,
listen, I'm an expert at insert industry, right? And then after I get called out on it, I'm like, oh, actually, I've never done a damn thing in my life, and I never even read a freaking book about how it works. But I just
wanted to point that out.
There in the interview, like insisting that you should hire me because I'm an expert in XYZ. You would be.
Is this why we have so many mechanical engineers talking about evolution for the creation side?
Right. Yeah, and this is why John Maddox, who has never read a textbook on genetics, I know he's got 2 links of what he's read in molecular biology of the cell, probably 1 page, and then another page in biochemistry, and then he's read all of this Answers in Genesis stuff, and read a few, and he's put together an impressive little piece of knowledge. I'm proud of him. He knows a little bit about ribosomes and a bunch of other stuff, and he keeps learning, but he's never actually read a textbook. So he's kind of doing the same thing, but he's saying that we're doing it. And you could say that I'm doing it because I have not read that stack of books. So, but then this comes up, and this is interesting.
Things like that you're talking about, you actually go and read the article or read the book they're referring to, and then you get halfway through it, and it's like, wait a minute. This literally says the opposite of what you claim it says.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's it. So they're making the same accusation that I make of him. He's saying the same thing about me as I would say about him. We're on 2 sides of the argument. Now, isn't that odd?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the part I wanted to point out in this video. There are a couple of other things in there that we can go over at another time, but we'll switch over to the Smokey thing. But I just thought, they're just as frustrated with us as we are with them.
I would be very surprised if you could find any origins of life researchers saying how origins of life is a naturalistic origin of life is impossible.
Yeah. And you wouldn't find hardly any researchers that would say we proved that God doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, of course. I feel, you sort of touched on that, and I thought that was a pretty important part of your presentation, that they're just completely separate axes, right?
Yeah.
Even if God did it, we have enough evidence, I would say now, that he did it via naturalistic means, right? Sure, he could have directed evolution, whatever. It doesn't mean that evolution didn't happen. We have enough, I would say we've proved common descent to the point that we've proved gravity, right?
Yeah.
And just because gravity exists doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. Just because common descent exists doesn't mean that God doesn't exist, Right.
We can bracket the argument anywhere they want. We can do it with the seed that you plant today. And we could say there's no natural, there's no supernatural invention. We could go back 6,000 years ago, and we could say, okay, fine, maybe the Earth started last Thursday, or maybe it started 6,000 years ago, and it just looks like it's really old. Or we could go back to eukaryotic cells, with my claim that a starship backed up and dumped all these cells in the ocean, and that's where it started. Or God did it. Or we could go back to the beginning of the Earth and say God intervened right at the beginning, or we could go back to the Big Bang. Science doesn't make any claim about any of that.
Yeah.
all we claim is that if you look at evolution, it looks like, common descent is we have all this evidence for it. And we have no evidence so far for supernatural. And then they call us desperate. And of course, we call them desperate because, like I said in that, did you watch that little video I did prior?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Just making the point that that they're trying to put on this cloak of science, and they're trying to prove God with science. And we are not doing the opposite. So we're having two different conversations. And it's kind of crazy. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we go through the video. What do you think?
Sure. Nice back.
Beautiful. Okay, so now that is our opening video there. Now, Tony, I'll save the slides.
Did you want to watch James Stewart or that video on Fazrana?
No, dear God. I've heard that claim so many times it's not even amusing anymore.
I know, so we know what the claim is. So
you want allow me, if possible, to just kind of lay out the opening structure of the argument so that you can then kind of proceed. Unless, Tony, you want to do it yourself, unless you kind of want to just...
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, no, that was the one specific thing I was talking about. I got a bunch of other things we can discuss later, but it's basic.
Okay, so that was the conversation that I thought I was walking into. We were going to talk about the methods of research on abiogenesis.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The manipulated conditions that chemists are using that don't relate to the early Earth, and UV radiation was one of them.
Okay, well let's give Speed of Sound an opportunity.
Did you say something?
Yeah, and immediately we're at a red flag. It's this whole contention of manipulated conditions is just, in my opinion, nonsensical. It's okay, how exactly do you propose we do science if we're not controlling, in testing certain variables at a particular point in time?
Yeah.
The whole purpose of experimental methodology, in designing an effective experiment, is so that you can say, okay, so this thing contributes to the formation of this product, this thing doesn't, this thing doesn't, this thing doesn't. It's to give you a clear metric for determining how things are correlated together.
Yeah.
And this idea of just throwing things into a jar, just letting things happen is very, I don't know, it seems very naive.
And that was a conversation that I thought we were going to have, but then they ran me up and down every goddamn street they could. Instead of allowing me to respond to just that conversation and staying on top.
Right.
I'll show you where they did that.
Apply that.
I'm just trying to get some ceiling popcorn on.
That's fine. Everyone's got ceilings on my channel here.
I want things to be equal. I want this to be equitable.
Fair.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Anyway, how do I reply? Let's see. What would you have them do, Tony? How would you do these experiments? You're a chemist. How would you do the experiments to explore how some of these compounds could be created?
You'd have to start out with a random mixture of chemicals, which would have to relate to the early Earth conditions, similar to what Stanley Miller did in 1953. And that experiment really didn't show much. There's a lot of problems with that. So I would say,
experiment?
Yeah.
With a formulation of amino acids and stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he's basically saying that every experiment we do should be like that. We should keep running the same experiment over and over again. I'm not sure what his point was. It just, if you guys want me to pause, if you say pause fairly loudly, I will, so I can separate you from the sound.
All right.
Okay.
Well, the thing is, too, is it seems even here, it seems like he's using this idea of homogeneity, this idea that
pudding
everywhere on the early Earth was essentially the same. It was all covered in water. It was pretty much uniform. And that all the concentrations of everything was just equal across the board. Which it's just.
That's where I came up with pudding. I was asking him, do you think the entire Earth was one big homogeneous pile of mud that where if you picked one piece here and one piece there, you couldn't tell the difference between them? It's
if you answer yes to that question, it's very. It makes it seem as if though you're very not well read on the topic.
Right, and he claims to be
don't hold an opinion. Like we know very well, like that there are certain like geochemical processes, like near oceanic vents, and like in small lakes and ponds, for instance, that house kind of unique chemical environments of their own.
Yeah, there's quadrillions of microenvironments, that these chemicals went. I mean, on the Earth as it was boiling and cooling, you can imagine that there were quadrillions of microenvironments, and you can't say that it was just one sort of condition in the Miller-Urey test tube,
Another thing you have to consider as well is that when the Earth formed, right, and when the Moon formed, like shortly thereafter, the orbital period of the Moon was a lot quicker than it is currently, because we know that the Moon is receding. So it means that the tidal patterns on the early Earth, like in the distribution of water, is quite different. And it's relevant because, okay, in the beginning of all things, I mean, after you have some time to cool down, or even before that, you have water that's essentially spread out in different areas, some of which is in more basic environments, some of it's more in more acidic environments, some of it is occupying areas that are nearby the geothermal vents, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But these different environments all house or have the potential to create very different kind of chemical reactions and form an array of products. And you have a way for these chemicals to kind of mix together, because you have essentially this process of essentially you have this process where water is coming out of one area and into another.
Yeah, and this huge paper by Kittadai that we printed out, we were talking about a couple of months ago. They have these, phosphate ores, and they have this comatite and uranium ores, and I don't know what creep is, but basalt and gabbro, and there's geysers, and there's rain, and there are clouds, and there's a toxic ocean, and there are volcanic vents, and there are volcanoes. I mean, there's a lot going on back then. And this, I showed them this illustration somewhere, but they didn't really understand why I was showing it to them. But I kind of wanted to say that it's not pudding. But let's see where granted, I really should keep my mouth shut sometimes and not say things like pudding or that gods and aliens created the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
I can't help myself. You know that, Immutable. I have to say it.
I know.
Don't get me on goats. Okay, we're not going to get on goats.
Looks like Anthony is in the live chat.
Oh, he is. Where's chat? Oh my God, where's my chat? I haven't been. Oh, he's here. What is he saying? Put all your friendly mom. Okay, Smokey Saint's here too. How about that? Let's take a look. Yeah, my arguments are just above your head. Yeah, I'm just so dumb, Smokey. You're just so smart. You can't even repeat our arguments correctly to address it. So, okay, Smokey, in chat, tell me what the hell your argument really was.
I'll debate Immutable right now. He doesn't have any environment in which abiogenesis can work. Okay, that's never been my claim. My claim is not currently that abiogenesis is a current theory of how things are going. I've always said it is a theory that is being developed. There is continuous research day in and day out on this topic as to exploring various mechanisms as towards how cells form from these basic kind of chemical precursor steps. Independent of whether or not you want to posit an intelligent designer or not, the simple fact of the matter is neither of us.
Walker, oh no. I'm sorry, Walker.
You're good.
I didn't see you.
Only been there for like a few minutes.
Oh, have you been trying to say something? Okay, damn it.
The issue, Tony, is that despite you saying you do know how something occurred, the literature disagrees with you. Because currently we don't know how to integrate these various hypotheses like metabolism first, replication first, and lipid world first environments. We don't know how they come together. That is an active area of research. And so our disagreement comes into question about what are the mechanisms that are needed given we have these biological precursors to form a cell. And the only intellectual honest answer we have is that we don't know, and that's fine.
So, Smokey, what the hell did I get wrong about your argument? You played the Phosphorana thing. That was an argument against the way abiogenesis is done, and I was responding to that. What did I get wrong? You can do it in chat, or you can run to your own stream and do it without my intervention. Anyway, moving on.
Sure.
Early Earth conditions, you have to start with a random mixture of chemicals. You can't start with hand-selected chemicals. For example, chemists select all left-handed amino acids when they're doing their protein folding experiments. They buy synthetic kits from other chemists, and these molecules are carefully prepared in such a way. So they allow the chemist to succeed. And the reason is because the molecules have been purified and hand-selected and handled in such a way that it's showing intelligent agency, not unguided natural chemistry.
Okay, so I have two questions about that. First is, how in the hell do you know what the early conditions of the Earth are? And the second one is, do you know what pudding is?
We know what
I couldn't help myself, man. Somebody has to sit beside me with a stun gun.
Been found on the early Earth, and the experiments that have been shown never succeed. But if you want to say, okay, well, we don't know, that would make your side even more moot and uncertain. Chemists would be guessing even more than they are now.
Yeah. Why the hell do you think we're doing all these experiments, Tony? We don't know. That's why we're experimenting.
How is admitting you don't know something with absolute certainty a sign of being wrong?
That is in the underlayment of everything that they say.
It honestly seems like this kind of logic of if you're not right, that means, or if you're wrong about X, that means we're right about it. Inject God here. It's just like I'm genuinely confused how God in any way simplifies an explanation for abiogenesis and not complicate it.
Yeah, and why bring? Okay, that's what I meant by why bring religion and metaphysics to a science fight, which is what this conversation should have been about. It was between a chemist, supposed chemist, Tony, and me, and we were supposed to have that talk, and they kept interjecting the God thing and naturalism, and that was not a talk that I wanted to have. And I was once again blindsided by my own naive honesty in having an intellectual discussion. And now Smokey wants to go off and do it on his own. Smokey, you want to come in here and tell us what your argument was?
I'm happy having Tony in here.
No, not Tony. Tony will never. I will never talk to Tony again in person in my life.
I honestly like Tony. I think he's a good guy. It's just I'm genuinely confused what point he's trying to make. I mean, I've listened to James Tour's lectures several times, and he, in my opinion, he doesn't make much of a point. Like, he's restating things that people in the field are already well aware of.
Shit.
And he's not.
Shit.
Hang on a second, he doesn't seem to suggest any type of way to get around this problem.
I mistakenly posted something or pasted something here. Hang on a second. I'm trying to edit it. And I can't edit it. Edit. Damn it. Edit.
Oh, Basement Dweller is also in the live comments.
Editing. Come on, edit. Oh my goodness. There we go. Shit. I pasted something around. Oh yeah, Basement Dwellers will say on a pond. On a pond? What is he saying? On a pond flowing into another pond, blessed with a geyser. While the sun is delivering just the right amount of radiation, not to mention a switch on the sun being required. Amazing science religion. Well, God could have been behind all that. He could have been shining the sun here and there, and
I'm
making.
genuinely okay. So, do you think God causes like geysers to erupt and ponds like to carve out rock, or not ponds, but like river streams to cut out rocks over a very long period of time? And do you think God is the thing moving the Earth around its axis of rotation?
Yeah, do you
Because
think?
I don't know where it is for you, but like where I am, it gets dark here about every 12 hours or so.
Yep.
So
And-
I'm confused, like what kind of switch you're talking about, because that's kind of interesting.
Yep.
Like this is like 5th grade astronomy.
Oh, let's see. I'm not going to post Anthony's because I don't really care what he has to say anymore. He's, as far as I'm concerned, he's a pinhead. I'm sorry, but I just.
No, it's
What happened? What happened? Where are we here? Okay, we're way back here. We're on pudding. No, we're not back to pudding. Yeah, I went way ahead. Let's see, pudding, and we go pudding and play I don't know, and then Tony talks about how we're making
What he produced was death.
Death of the
He
test
removed
tube.
oxygen. He produced carbolic tars. What he
talking
produced was death.
Miller Urey. Okay, carbolic tars, really? That was where, and I went along with it, but I think he meant carbonaceous tars is what he was trying to say.
I think so, because carbolic acids just refer to a class of molecules called
Phenol.
phenols.
It's phenol. Yeah, phenols, is that how you say it? Okay.
You can call it phenol, or you can call it phenol. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Oxygen.
I rolled with it.
He produced carbolic tars and racemic amino acids.
Carbolic tars are pretty interesting, by the way. But anyway, do you know what pudding is?
In what context?
What
Pudding
Pudding
what?
has like a single
Pudding.
consistency all the way through. So when you
Pudding?
said that,
Food pudding?
yeah. So like he's just, and I wasn't going to let it go. I mean, I was going to keep asking about pudding, and I should have said, okay, do you think the environment of the Earth was homogeneous mud? Is what I should have said, but I wouldn't let it go. Chocolate pudding. Well, if you dip into chocolate pudding, when you dip into chocolate pudding, it's the same at the top as it is at the bottom, right? Are you suggesting that the early Earth was pudding? Because you said that you would put in, how did you word it? You said you would put in the elements or the components or the chemicals that were in the early Earth, and then you would do what? Wait for it to react and turn into life?
Well, that's actually what you believe, that these chemicals are going to self-assemble and react on their own and turn into the first primitive cell or self-replicating molecule.
And that's a straw man. But let's see here. Let's see. No, I don't. It's moronic. Just a walking fish said. Exactly what started my channel. It's dangerous and aggressive. And Basement Dweller said you just refuted yourself?
I don't know if that was a response to me, but
Okay.
Who refuted themselves? Basement Dweller, and how do we do that?
You're
And
manipulating environments that don't relate to the early Earth. Hand selecting purified molecules is not clearly Earth conditions. Is clearly not Earth conditions, you clowns. Even Lee Cronin admitted that to James Tour.
Oh my God.
So there is no mechanism.
Lee Cronin did not admit it.
So let me get this straight, Anthony. That there are no published papers on what are called symmetry breaking mechanisms that favor the formation of chiral compounds, that favor one class of chiral compounds over another. That's what I'm hearing now. I agree with you that all the papers that I've read, and even review articles on this, say that you will still have some fraction of the wrong diastereomer, but there are mechanisms that favor one class of that favor one type of molecule over the other in terms of their stereochemistry.
Yeah, we've got a lot of papers on that. Uh-oh, I did a John Maddox there. I pulled a John Maddox. Okay, moving on. Well, wouldn't we have to wait like 200 million years for that to turn into life, or would the pudding just rot? What you're saying is that what you're saying is that okay, you're making a couple claims here. You're claiming that you know what the conditions were in the first 10 15 million years of the Earth,
Well-
when the crust basically cooled to the point where we had boiling water. You know what that condition is, and you're also saying that it was pudding across the entire Earth, that we could take one kind of substance.
If you want to claim uncertainty,
Okay, here's kind of where Tony starts turning up the heat, and I start swearing, and this is where the discussion just should have ended, basically.
through this whole debate, you're not helping your side.
How could I claim certainty when we're not certain of how life began, and we're not certain?
We are certain that we're not going to achieve all left-handed amino acids on a primitive Earth.
Oh God,
That's not going to happen.
Why would we have to?
Because that's what proteins need.
Why are you assuming that early life was basically?
I could see what you're doing
living-
here. Yeah, because proteins only use left.
I'm talking to you about
Because proteins only use left-handed amino acids. If you have an example of a protein using both right and left-handed, I'd like to see it.
I don't know how much work we've done with racemic mixtures of amino acids and what can form, but I'm guessing that early Earth probably wasn't even about the amino acids that we have today, the 20 that we have today.
So what scenario do you think got life going? Metabolism first, RNA world? Because they're all plagued with problems, but I'd like to hear your best guess.
I don't have a clue. I like all the theories.
Wow.
What do you like?
Okay. So, you are aware that these individual mechanisms aren't like conclusive enough to explain the origin of the life. Like these are all essentially hypotheses which posit how certain aspects of biological systems can arise naturally. So information first, like one of the papers that was published, I believe, in 2016, showed that if you take a random assortment of RNA molecules and you induce the selective pressure of replication on them in a cold environment, they will form, they essentially will build themselves into a replication machine that it has a fairly decent fidelity of replicating some template strand. Now, the paper's a little more complicated than that, but if you want to go over the paper, I'm happy to.
Yeah. So Basement Dweller says, switch on the sun as in radiation inside the experiments. Yeah, Basement Dweller, my good friend, the sun goes down every night. I'm sorry, but it switches on every morning, switches off every night.
Okay, and here's the thing, Basement Dweller, because I've seen this part of the video, and here's an interesting little thought experiment for you, right? The proposition being proposed here is that some reactant, so something that's being reacted in a chemical environment, needs to form one specific product and can't be exposed to UV radiation. Okay, fine. So when UV light is shined on these molecules, some of them are going to convert to the proper product and stay fine because they're no longer going to absorb that light. And some of these molecules are going to convert into unstable products, and they are going to decompose. So what you have now is you have a new fraction of molecules that form the right product, and a fraction that still is incorrect but is reformed back into its constituents. So essentially you have this way of generating back the material you need to get the correct thing. So I don't understand how this is a rescue device, because Tony seems to be thinking that this is just an all-in-one type of experiment.
Yeah.
That it has to be one shine of light to convert the molecules, and that's all there needs to be.
So what you just did there, Immutable, is what I would expect a person who called himself a chemist to talk. That is the kind of language that I was striving for with Tony, but he never, even though he calls himself a chemist, he never seems to talk about chemistry. And you just did, and that's basically explaining it. I could have done better at explaining my pudding concept to him. I don't think he was listening to me at this point, so he didn't get it.
I don't know, because for me that's a fairly basic point. It's like, why would you ever assume in a chemical experiment that you need to do this within one step or one reaction? Because a lot of times reactions will fail. They'll form the wrong product. Those products will more than likely decompose if they're not stable enough. and it'll return back to its reactive state.
No, that's the thing, Basement Dweller. We don't know what all of those intermediate ingredients were in the very beginning, and we're kind of like starting. We may be starting in the middle. If you're starting with amino acids, you're going to start there. If you're looking at how the amino acids got formed or how they ended up being all L amino acids, then we have to move back a step. But in the very early Earth, I don't think RNA and amino acids were even in question back then. I think it was something entirely different, something like Lee Cronin is working on with his exobiology. He's trying to different ways that it can work. Go ahead.
Another thing about that, right? You're saying, do you even know what the results need to be? That seems to be, in my opinion, a very malformed way of thinking about the question. Because the assumption here is that the prebiotic systems that we're forming in this kind of environment have to be the same as the ones that are has to be the same as the ones that are currently being used by biological systems. Which ultimately, it's true that yes.
Now.
It's ultimately true that yes, that's what life ended up choosing, but it doesn't need to be true in conditions that are different.
Oh, I'm doing it again. Immutable, stop me. I'm saying things. I can't help myself. Basement Dweller says we don't know what a cell is. So like they want to rush ahead to the cell, which is, that's what they want to do. They want to see life come out of pudding. I'm sorry, that's what they think we should be doing. All these flasks, we could, get like 500 flasks and wait for pudding to develop a cell. Okay, Walker, did you want to say something?
Not really. I think I've said this before, abiogenesis isn't something that I know too much about.
Yeah. None of us are. That's not our wheelhouse. Exactly. Well, more you so. You immutable than me.
Yeah.
But, it's something that, like, if I were to debate somebody on abiogenesis, I would really want to go through these 10 books and the pile of papers that we put together on it before we did it. Mm-hmm. It's an immense task. I don't know. We'll go on.
I think where I'm going with this.
Okay, but you're claiming that 100% for sure that it couldn't have happened. But let's get back to the pudding. Okay, I'm trying to get back to you complain constantly that chemists use these controlled conditions. Well, you know why they do that? Because they want to figure out okay, are you familiar with graph theory or networks? Where you draw.
Yeah. How do you even know that they would work if you don't even know the conditions yourself? You're guessing as well.
Are you familiar with graph theory where you draw little circles and edges, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to explain how that there is a massive network that starts out with billions or trillions or quadrillions of nodes in the early Earth, and there is a graph that goes from one node to the next, from one chemical to the next, or one set of chemicals to the next, and that this all coalesces somewhere millions of years later in the basic building blocks that we're looking for, and then things start to come together. So I'm trying to get them to think in terms of why we're doing all of these individual experiments and why we're like to go from node A to node B, you have to control the conditions exactly because you're only investigating that one node. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense, right? That's how you do the science. You don't, and this Richard that they put up, the paper that he did, he made that point that we have to control each individual little condition, and that's how we do the science. You don't do the science by putting pudding in a test tube.
Yeah, and pudding has nothing to do with the early Earth. So bad analogy, Speed.
Bad analogy. No. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm telling you. You're suggesting that we put something in a flask that resembles the early Earth. Isn't that what you said? That you would put pudding in a flask?
No, I never said pudding. I said
no,
a
you didn't
mixture.
call it pudding, but you were suggesting that you know the homogeneous nature of the entire Earth and that there wasn't any variation from 1 square foot to the next square foot. So that's a pudding.
No, I would say that all the molecules were there at once in very random mixtures. So in order to get sequenced arranged information, you have to have a specific arrangement. You have to have sequencing, syntax. You have to have things that are arranged in a specific way in order to get genetic.
Okay, this is where Tony goes ahead to sequence DNA and RNA and all of that stuff. And that is like leapfrogging way, way ahead. But we got some comments to deal with here.
Yeah.
That serves the whole point. It is a paradox. Can we produce any simple chemicals that reproduce? Oh my God. Okay, and then we're going to address that. Anybody want to address that?
Immutable had to go AFK, and I don't really know.
Where'd he go?
I don't know. He just said in the private chat that he was AFK.
Okay. Anyway, let's see. I don't want to address that. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Okay, you want to see evidence of life out of a natural environment, you fail. You want to see, yeah, that's what we're working on, Smokey. I'm sorry, okay? Sorry that we haven't done it on your time schedule. What is your definition of life then? Okay. So he wants us to address this reproducing thing. Yeah, that's kind of what we're getting to. But there's a lot of steps that we got to go through first.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, it's kind of confusing. That and his other one that's right below it about refuting life as we know it. Is he trying to say that we're claiming that these biochemicals, like the early biochemicals, were alive?
Yeah, that they should reproduce. They want to get...
Reproduction isn't the only definition of life. There's multiple other factors that make something alive. And even then, there's like gray area with viruses, you know?
Yeah, and like in the book, The Vital Question, Nick Lane, he talks about some very, very, very simple precursor, like clay cells that form kind of naturally that have a hydrogen gradient. And there's sort of there's an energy system going on. He starts very early and they keep wanting to jump ahead because this is how they think. And it's really hard to have a conversation with them when they keep leaping all over the place like this. You can't go to this replicating life right away when we're talking about something simpler. And that's where we're talking past each other. No, Smokey says that I said I had evidence to support my view. I told you, Smokey, that I had justification to support naturalism. I never said I had evidence to support abiogenesis. I did say I had evidence to support naturalism in that you plant a seed in the ground and it grows without intelligent intervention. It grows without God. Sorry, that's naturalism. And then basement dweller, let's see, because right now you're being illogical, even refuting life as we know it has to exist. No, I am not. I'm trying to get you to the point where you understand that a lot happened before self-replicating systems happened on the earth. A lot happened. Let's see. Okay, he's out of the discussion. It's useless. No point giving him any more attention. Thank you. Well, wait a minute. He's giving me more attention. Have fun misrepresenting life and chemistry. And then we got Anthony Maurice to deal with. What does he got to say? No environment with abiogenesis. Everybody. Yeah, we don't. Right. Yeah, sure. Yeah. If only we could have a planet.
to rerun the experiment?
Right.
In a couple billion years.
Yeah, maybe we can do that. Hopefully we won't have to move off this planet because of the COVID. Experiments consistently show failure, lots of interference by intelligent chemists. Okay. Immutable, you should know this. And speed of cluelessness. Thank you. You pinhead. I just don't like that man. I don't even think he's a nice guy anymore. I mean, let's play this whole
genetic code.
What was it? Pudding.
Speed. Pudding has nothing to do with the origin of life. Your analogy is nonsense. Pudding? Yeah, what is pudding made out of? Pudding, by the way, requires an arrangement of ingredients. So how about cake? How about cake? Can you just take a bunch of flour and mix it and turn it into cake, or is there specific steps required to produce a cake?
What?
Exactly. Okay. Now here's where he said exactly what my point was.
Yeah.
That you don't just mix them all together and expect it to happen. You have to actually, I mean, there are many steps in making a cake. I mean, isn't that amazing that he, I don't know, takes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Exactly. Okay,
yeah, you needed a specific ingredients in order to make cake.
What did you suggest just a little while ago? You suggested putting a bunch of pudding in a flask that you thought resembled what the entire Earth was 4.5 billion years ago, and that's what you. I'm asking you, what would you do in order to figure out whether or not abiogenesis could work? What test would you're complaining?
What test would I make? I just told you I would take all the life-friendly molecules needed, put them in a test tube, and see if they self-assemble, which they don't.
We're on the early, and that's pudding. We're on the early Earth.
No, it has nothing to do with pudding. Where are you getting pudding from? This is ridiculous. Do you know anything about chemistry? Pudding has nothing to do with organic molecules such as proteins and RNA and DNA.
Pudding is organic. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
it does seem like he's getting lost in your analogy, though.
He is, yeah. He's getting lost in my analogy.
Yeah. I would have,
I didn't realize that analogy would fly right over his head so badly.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously the early Earth wouldn't have been uniform. Also, the baking a cake analogy is equally bad.
Yeah, it is.
What he's expecting is for you to put like a bunch of carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen in a jar and then have it pop out a cake, right? Yep. Not even like flour. We're way before flour at this point.
Yeah, and if we manipulate it, if we add the water at a certain time or the shortening at a certain time, we're manipulating it. Okay.
What's that?
Okay.
What?
I'm trying to get you to understand that what you're suggesting is ridiculous.
Oh, okay. So then where's your proof for abiogenesis then? If it's so ridiculous, how did life get going?
No, we're going back to pudding. Okay, you said that you would put all of the let's back up.
Yeah. Yeah, because you need a specific
what chemicals would you put in?
Gentlemen, hold on a second. Let's try to get off the pudding, okay? I think we're making everyone hard.
Smokey has a point there. I probably should have dropped the pudding analogy at this point.
Yeah.
But I just didn't think it was that hard to understand what I was asking.
Pudding.
I can give you.
Hold on.
Yeah, we don't.
Hold on 1 second. Let's
putting on my hat. I'm putting on my hat.
Yeah, pudding.
Let's pull back a little bit. Okay, let's just pull back out of the argument a little bit. So, Speed, I think maybe a way to try and bring this to a closer, kind of more realistic, profitable exchange here. I don't think Tony's really necessarily preaching some level of absolute certainty, like 100%. What he's kind of saying is this is the explanation that makes the most sense. So I think it would help us to move this forward. You tell us what explanation from the evidence you've collected makes the most sense for the origin of life to you. And then
okay, right here he's asking me to explain abiogenesis to him, and I think I tell him I don't know.
Maybe now we have somewhere to kind of move forward with the discussion.
I don't have one. We don't know.
Yeah, this is retarded. How about we just pull up the can I get my 2 slides up?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's go and pull those up. Give me 2 seconds here. I put them in my downloads here.
Okay, so let's see. Let's go ahead to the slides. Okay, there's number 1.
He does this all the time.
Okay, this is Richard. It's not easy to see. And this is just like an excerpt from that whole article, which we could look at later. But Richard was making the point that this is a criticism that's leveled against abiogenesis researchers. And Richard was telling them why it's really not a fair criticism, I think. I mean, he was saying he came up in this article with the hand of God, I think, and he was famous for it. I'm not sure. What year was this, 2018? I don't know, but it goes back to a bunch of other discussions. So anyway.
Let's just go through these real quick, and then we'll let him.
Anybody want to read that?
Okay.
You want to read that?
Yeah, I'll
read.
Clemens Reichert, Prebiotic Chemistry and Human Intervention. Nature Communications, number 9, December 12, 2018, blah, blah, blah. It says, it's not easy to see what replaced the flasks, pipettes, and stir bars of a chemistry lab during prebiotic evolution, let alone the hands of the chemist who performed the manipulations. And yes, most of us are not comfortable with the idea of divine intervention.
Okay,
that's the
even
first
just
one.
from hearing
Now
that, it
we
sounds
have
like he's
lecture.
about to say a but.
Dr. Tour
What's that?
Oh, I said even just from hearing that statement, it sounds like he's about, like the Clement's about to say a but, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And he does.
Like introduction.
And if you look at the real article, there are a lot of buts in there. And Clemens is saying, yeah, we're not comfortable with the hand of God. And it's not easy to imagine why we're doing it this way. But
yeah.
But there are quadrillions of microstates, and the sun went up and down, and volcanoes erupted, and currents moved around, and a lot of shit happened. And it's like, for God's sake, listen to what the man. And then he points out that, oh, he's a PhD chemist. Yeah, and he actually works on RNA World as one of the. If you go to his research site, that's what he does, and he's written a lot of papers. Also, that what's his name, Sutherland, I think it was. That Favrana was criticizing. He's got just hundreds of papers. I think I pulled like 30 papers from 2020 on him where he's working on these very problems. And I couldn't find the one where they were talking about him having to irradiate it and then not irradiate it. And then, so I couldn't find out which one Favrana was referring to. I've got
it's a 2010 paper, I believe.
It is? I've got his book in the other room. He probably references it somewhere. So 2010, you think?
I'm pretty sure that's what's being referenced because in the debate, the super chat that he responds to is referencing a paper that came out in 2010. I think it was about nucleotide formation, and I think that's where this whole debacle about radiation is coming from.
Yeah, and he's done a whole lot of things since then, like in 2020, like I say, about 20 papers, I think. And then all the way back, so I'm going to have to go all the way back to 2010 and then creep back.
I mean, another issue, and obviously people should look into the claim as well to make sure, yes, to make sure that this claim is correct. But is it fair to consider the sun as being the only radiating body of UV light?
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of uranium ores and.
Well, no, just not even that point, but that the area we live in, like this galaxy of the Milky Way, has other tremendous stars that give off light, and other galaxies and other galactic processes that also give off light. Now, the fraction of that light is going to be significantly smaller, but the question you're asking is, does that light penetrate the atmosphere?
Yeah.
Does it actually interact with the molecules in the way that the researchers are trying to get them to react?
What's interesting is that I started in microcomputers in 1979 when we had the first 8080 processors, and we had this 64K of RAM, and every now and then one of the bits of the RAM would flip from 1 to 0 or 0 to 1. And the explanation given by the semiconductor companies was that a gamma ray had hit it. Huh. So it was rare. It happened to us maybe once a month, but every now and then they would screw up. And they blame gamma rays. It's like, damn.
It happens. Because that's a issue in cryptography as well. Like when you send information embedded in some cryptographic language, you have to account for error correction, because you will have cosmic radiation that occasionally causes one of the bit states to change from being 0 to 1, or a character or a numeral in hexadecimal to change, something like that.
Yeah, bracket shit happens.
Described how no scientific research to date has demonstrated.
Okay. I'm not going to listen to James Tour.
In the third exact smallish, fully equipped chemist team of highly trained organic chemists.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah, exactly my argument. And that was Origin of Life. OOL was Origin of Life.
Right. Thank you,
Scientist.
sir. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
no problem.
Appreciate
No
that. Yeah,
problem.
I didn't catch that exactly.
Yeah.
That's not an acronym I've seen before, so thank you for that. Speed, do you kind of understand where Tony is kind of shooting from the hip on some of this, where he's kind of saying, well, deductively, this isn't adding to any potentiality of a naturalistic paradigm, therefore law of non-contradiction, we kind of have to look at other options?
Where is he deriving non-contradiction from?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure where he came up with. Oh, he came up either it's naturalism or it's God, which wasn't the conversation I was having. For Christ's sake, Smokey, this is not the conversation I was having with Tony.
I should point out that the actual objection is a little bit more broad than that. It's either natural or it's not natural. Now, God certainly is not natural, but so are things that are also mythical.
Yeah.
You can think of examples as you please, but keep in mind that, like, the limiting of God in this case, right, as to being the only thing that is non-natural, really is shortening the pool of options when there's no reason to exclude other possibilities.
You know, and this is a point where we get frustrated and we say, oh, maybe aliens just dumped life on Earth. But aren't they saying, and then they freak out and laugh about that. Well, they're talking about an alien. God is definitely not a human being. He's an alien, right? I mean, God is like a freaky super alien. And that's their idea, is that this super alien created life on Earth. So, I mean, why should we not, say, well, maybe it was aliens from another star system? We don't know. But anyway, I'm not much for the alien.
Oh, my. Looks like Tony's back again.
Tony is back. Oh, God, let's see what Tony had to say. Blah, blah, blah. You haven't refuted anything that James Stewart said. You delusional clown. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Hold on. Anthony Maurice, you fucking incompetent pinhead. Okay, I got it out of my system.
Anthony, I'm sorry. When did I go into this conversation wanting to pick a fight with James Tour? I don't think I have in this conversation.
No.
I've said that James Tour really hasn't provided much of a criticism of ABio. He's pointed out things that people are aware of, and he hasn't provided any substantive explanation for it. But thank you for bringing that point up again.
Okay, and then I went and let it slip, about the meth lab. But I mean, what chemist hasn't created meth, right?
I haven't.
Oh, really? I thought everybody did.
Because it doesn't come out pure.
Oh, hell, it doesn't. You can purify meth. So we're not going to get into that. Okay, I can go through that with you in private chat. But anyway, when I was 13 years old, I built a fractional still for my father because he was trying to distill alcohol from corn in the chicken coop so that my mom wouldn't know. And when I was 13 years old, I turned him on to fractional stills, and we pulled 180 proof alcohol off the top of a column that he built that he packed with beer bottles, broken beer bottles. So my father, that was the first time my father was proud of me for reading books.
Okay.
I made him this moonshine, and he sat at the kitchen table and he took a drink and he turned red and he started to choke and he said, "Yeah, that's good." It's like, you did good, son.
Like straight Everclear almost.
Right. Yeah. That was the environment I came from. So you got to forgive me for getting a chemistry lab and doing a little research, sorry. And then, Tony, of course, is, gonna keep, slamming that home, go back to the meth lab. Yeah. Do some meth. Yeah. Fuck you, Tony, pinhead. No, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. The critique that chemists are using very, very controlled conditions in order to do try to get back on topic. Experiment to find out what one synthesis is going to do is not. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of these experiments. You realize there's about 1,500 papers on ABio a year.
Yeah, none has ever led to life, and it's plagued with problems.
Well, none has ever led to life.
Right. You're not helping your side here, Speed. You're not really. You're just rambling like usual. You don't have any evidence. This is just stupid.
Okay, this is where he turns up the heat.
It's dumb, man.
You know,
You don't have an argument,
Why
dude.
don't you just back off the fucking on?
Yeah, because you don't have an argument. You're like Joe Biden of the atheist community.
Damn, that's rough.
Yeah. Back. I mean, that's pretty much all you do in your comments is that. Okay, this is where he pissed me off, and I pretty much lost it.
All right, well, let's hear an argument. Let's hear an argument of how life got going. Refute James Tour, please.
Refute James Tour. James Tour is talking nonsense.
Nonsense? Okay, then how did life start? These experiments aren't contrived. Is that what you're saying?
Of course they're contrived. They have to be.
So you admit they are.
Yes, they're contrived as hell.
All right,
They have to
so
be.
if they're highly manipulated, how
Okay,
is it?
You're such a great chemist. You would take a bunch of pudding, put it in a flask.
Back to the pudding. Pudding has nothing to do with the origin of life.
No, it has
Pudding,
to do
yeah.
with what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
Sir. You're
Yeah.
suggesting.
No, pudding has not. Have you ever heard a chemist talk about pudding?
You know how ridiculous what you suggested was? You said put all the chemicals necessary for life in a flask and wait for it to do something?
Yeah, that would be unguided chemistry. That's abiogenesis. Everything all together.
What Okay, that's his. He
Okay.
admits it. He admits that's what he would do.
Oh my.
And he
Tony,
claims to be a chemist.
Tony. We got to get you into a chemistry lab at some time. I mean, are you a receptionist at your job, or?
Well, I think
I'm sorry, but I mean, this doesn't sound like someone who's been trained, like
Well,
with the type of background that you profess to have.
Yeah, he said he worked at a pharmaceutical company, in chemistry. I think what he did is he brought them the coffee and the bagels.
It's just, I know, like I've been trained like with other people who are just as smart as me and smarter than me, and I can ask them this exact question right now, and they will pretty much laugh their head off at what you just said.
Yeah,
because that's something you'd expect maybe from like a freshman. But wow, okay. You know better than I do, but okay.
So I don't know. Walker, you got anything?
No, I mean, y'all have already said this is a pretty blatant misunderstanding of how the scientific method works. You have to control variables. That's a thing.
Yeah.
That's like something that's taught in like Science 101. It's like...
I mean, it's taught before college. It's not even a freshman. Maybe a freshman in high school. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's... Man, read a book or something. I mean, this is just like unusually like just an infantile criticism of abiogenesis. I mean, there's things you can criticize about, okay, is the catalyst they're using to start a nucleophilic reaction or, electrophilic addition reasonable for the abiotic conditions that are being proposed? Sure, that's a reasonable question. It's one that needs explored. But that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the most simplistic excuse that you could tell anybody, a geneticist, a geologist, anybody. Oh, well, you're controlling things in the experiment, therefore you can't deduce any reasonable conclusions from the data. What?
Which is exactly the opposite. Oh, he's back. He's back. He's got more. We love you, Tony. You just take all the chemicals you want.
Friendly molecules you want in pure form and bring something to life. Oh my lord, man!
He's doubling down.
Are you a computer, Tony? I'm sorry, but like, you go through like these phases of just the same argument over and over and over. You keep bragging about, oh, I'm a chemist. Talk some chemistry.
Now, here's the other misunderstanding. There isn't one book showing any evidence for abiogenesis. Every single paper done, every single paragraph in every book printed has evidence for abiogenesis. They want this one, okay, Genesis, I guess, is, they want it like that. They want us to tell this little story, this little parable, that this is how it happened.
Okay. The thing they want like a one paragraph, if possible.
Yeah.
Like description of how this thing occurred, and that can't work.
Something that can fit in their tiny little heads all at once. I'm being mean. I'm being hard on Tony. Okay, so this gets kind of interesting, I think. I don't know. Chemicals would you put in the flask?
Everything needed for life, all your amino acids in racemic form, all your sugars, I'll give you DNA.
Why would you start with amino acids? I mean, aren't we going back to abiogenesis?
Yeah, that's what you would come up with, would be racemic mixtures of amino acids. That's what is produced
We haven't played this before, have we? Or it almost seems like a repeat.
under prebiotic conditions.
Where did you get those from?
The 1953 Miller experiment, which is supposedly your greatest success.
You said that was contrived. You said that didn't work and that didn't represent the conditions on Earth. So why would you start with amino acids? I'm trying to figure out what you, Tony, would put in the flask as a
Okay,
chemical.
what would you put in there? Because you don't even want to start with amino acids? So that would be even worse for your camp, dude.
I wouldn't think that I was going to create life in a flask by putting
All
pudding.
right, again, you have no argument, Speed. What would you put in the flask? Tell me.
What would I put it? It depends on which part of the experiment I was doing.
Okay, so tell me how you would start producing the first primitive cell. Go.
Well, there's a couple. How would I start producing the first primitive cell? I don't think we can do that.
All right, man. Smokey, this is like no art. This is stupid.
Yeah, Speed.
This is dumb.
I think maybe here's the problem. Here, let me try and take this back a step. Because Speed, and I'm not trying to call you out here or anything, but I feel like.
Okay, this is where Smokey wants to get into the metaphysics.
When we've talked, you seem to kind of tell me that you're pretty sure of yourself, of a naturalistic paradigm of reality, as in, however life did emerge, you have every confidence that it was naturalistic. Am I wrong on that?
Every confidence, yes. No, okay. You're not wrong on that. No.
Okay. So you do believe that the origin of life and evolution and anything else even before that, even the cosmology, all that, is naturalistic in its. There's no mind behind it, essentially, right? That's kind of where you're at, right?
Yeah, and that's a philosophical position, and that has to do with a philosophical argument that I believe that there are no mind gods. So that's number one. That has nothing to do with abiogenesis.
Well, it kind of does, and I'll explain why. Because when
okay, it kind of does, because that is where they're coming from. They're not doing science. They're doing metaphysics first. And I was trying to have a different discussion, I guess.
Yeah, I don't understand why you would come from a position like before doing any experimentation that naturalism couldn't explain something, right? Like what is, I mean, obviously the justification is it fits their like religious models and stuff, but it just doesn't make sense to me why the baseline assumption is that something can't be tested, because if you submit to that, then you're never going to test it.
Right. It's just like, why would a researcher even think about God or naturalism or any of that when he was trying to figure out how something happened?
Well, okay. I mean, they're definitely religious scientists, right? And they would likely agree that, you know, God probably played some hand in it, but it doesn't mean that naturalistic explanations are excluded, right? They probably think that God worked through naturalistic processes. They don't think that God is holding the earth in orbit.
Right.
You know, they're going to explain, okay, well, I mean, a lot of them use the justification like, let there be light, you know, Big Bang, start of electromagnetic radiation. God created Adam from dust, abiogenesis, stuff like that. But, you know, if you come with these assumptions that something can't be tested, then you're not going to test it, and society's not going to go anywhere.
Right. Yeah, they want us to come to a full stop on research and just say, oh, well, God did it back. And what I never understood about Christians, and I have talked to some really, really interesting Catholic priests on this, that if God were a good poet, he would have done it with the Big Bang, and that would have been enough. He would not have had to intervene after that. I mean, he would have sent things flying out in a certain way with certain natural laws that he could be absolutely certain that life would form naturally, right?
Yeah.
So, and if a Christian takes that position, that's the extreme old earth Christian view, then we don't have a fight with science anymore. There's no more fight.
Yeah, that's sort of the position I held at one point, and I wish more people online held. Just because, like, there's so much focus on fighting over religion, there's so much fighting over science, that I feel like that's why a lot of people, including myself, end up deconverting, right?
Yeah.
Because you see all these people trying to make these contrived justifications, and they end up making themselves look stupid.
And they don't have to do it. I mean, if you just accept that God was a really good poet and that he did it by just blasting the universe out of the Big Bang and having it all happen naturally, then we have no fight. And that's why that's a problem I have with them. They keep pretending they're doing science, and they're not. They're doing religion. And you can see it as the discussion goes on here with Smokey. And that's the problem I have with you, Smokey, is that you injected our naturalism discussion into a chemistry discussion.
We are drawing our evidences. What we're basically saying is we are drawing conclusions to evidence.
Oh, Mutable, are you still with us?
Yep, I'm still here.
I
do want to ask Tony like a real quick question, even though this topic is kind of getting past us.
Yeah.
By functional, do you mean that its structure is the same as modern proteins that do the exact same thing? Or are you referring to functional in the sense that it has some catalytic activity and some efficiency for some molecule?
Or that it's just a protein?
Yeah, it's just the term functional, even though it doesn't seem like it, is a relatively loaded term in this case.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know if he's still around, but so there's that, and I believe they have created, polypeptides up to 170 or something amino acids spontaneously or naturally, or without any enzymes or anything. I'm not sure exactly what the experiments were, but I don't know what he's claiming here. We'll see if he comes back. We'll go see where Smokey's going here, and then we'll watch.
Of a deductive argument for there being a mind. And the way we're doing it is that we're saying the origin of life has no...
What's that?
Okay, I have not heard a deductive argument regarding a mind needing to be involved.
He claims he has one, a real strong one. He said strong deductive argument, and he yells at me at the end.
I've heard like a plausible inference. I've heard like an inferential argument, but I haven't heard a deductive one.
Well, you see what I think's going on here. The reason that they're so obsessed with science is that they don't have faith in their own God, and they want this deductive argument where science proves that life cannot happen, and therefore they can believe. I mean, if they really had faith, they wouldn't care how God did it. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I have more faith than they do, for Christ's sake. Keep doing some research, running experiments. It's actually happening, helping until, here it is. Here he's trying to make that point exactly. Showing so much interference by the intelligent chemists, it's strengthening our side. So he doesn't have faith in his God, so he wants science to do it for him. And it's like, no. Like I say, I have more faith in these guys. I can't
So people use proper experimental methodology, therefore God. Okay, then.
Yep.
That's really the argument we're making here. That's
because we haven't pulled it off yet. We're proving God every day. I do despair.
Ability to arise from what we've discovered through science. Origin of life has no ability to arise through naturalistic methods. It requires infusion.
This is his strong deductive argument.
That is a claim you have yet to demonstrate. What can be said reasonably currently is that we don't know of any mechanisms by which these hypotheses can be unified into a model that builds a cell.
Yeah.
That does not mean, however, that there will never exist a model that explains how we can take self-replicating systems, lipid systems, and basic biological precursors in order to form what we would call a modern cell. Those things are not equivalent, and one does not follow from the other.
My bookmark here is that we have proven ID. He's claiming that he's proven intelligent design.
Both intelligent and extreme power. So in order to even manifest close to the basic building blocks of life, therefore, by law of non-contradiction, deducting backwards, we realize that we are now looking for some sort of intelligence, because this could not have arisen without it. This is kind of, now, the one thing I would draw back to is not to look at us saying, we are certain this is exactly how, where it happened, all this other stuff, the way that you're looking at it in kind of like a scientific formula. What we're saying is that the idea of a powerful intelligence is the most valid, reasonable, coherent explanation so far, the most valid model for the origin of life, just like evolution so far is the most valid scientific model for speciation. We're just simply posing that our model is.
So he's claiming that no, they haven't proven it, but it is the most logical, plausible, and probable conclusion that there is some sort of thing, some sort of alien God thing that created it for us.
You know, I'm just proud that internet self-proclaimed creationist is saying how common descent's the most common, or the most likely way of speciation. I'm okay with that. You know, if that's the end of the discussion.
So I mean, he is a creationist. He's an old Earth creationist. He rejects evolution, at least some parts of it.
Ian is here.
Hey, Ian.
Yeah. Tony's back again. You have no natural step shift showing anything in amino acids always formed in racemic mixtures, which are totally useless. You should know this immutable. Yeah, I already explained that there are mechanisms which are what are called symmetry breaking mechanisms that cause certain molecules to form in a preponderance of one diastereomer over others. And by the way, so you'll know, there are reactions that start with inorganic precursors and form basic amino acids.
Yep. And let's see, Ian Chen commented. I did see that comment, Ian, and they were very rude and insulting, I thought. And then we go on to, you have no natural steps showing anything, and amino acids always form a racemic. And my point is that it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters, basically. And the fellow, let's see what we got here. Clowns. You clowns have no steps that have ever led to anything. What would you put in a test tube to get life going?
He's asked the same question phrased differently, like at least 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, about 20 times. You know. We'd put pudding in there, Tony. You genius. Left-handed ones. Chemists use synthetic kits that are all pre-prepared. Yeah, well, bullshit.
Well, the thing is that those experiments which show that inorganic precursors can form amino acids under certain conditions. Does it matter after that point if we choose to use left-handed or right-handed ones?
Right.
Not really, because the purpose of that experiment is to show that left-hand molecules, the thing we're after, can form in the case of amino acids.
That's why I want to go ahead.
Now, can you ask the question, okay, well, is it possible for the right-handed ones to convert into left-handed ones at some point? That's a different question. You haven't refuted James Tour, you buffoon. Who's trying to refute James Tour, and on what point?
You know, I bet Tony couldn't even make math. Anyway. Okay, let's see where this all goes to hell here.
Is far more coherent and substantive than anything that's provided by naturalistic theory.
I'm not sure about that.
It's coherent to them because they believe in the Bible. They pre-believe, so it's coherent to them. But I don't have that luxury. I'm afraid I cannot. You know, I don't have this God belief, and it's not
purifying chemicals and hand selecting all left-handed amino acids is not going to be found in any environment on the prebiotic Earth. Clueless morons.
Well, that's why we're doing the experiments, Tony, to find out how it happened.
So again, what I said about symmetry breaking and the fact that it's plausible that you have kinetic barriers that might restrict our amino acids reacting. Wow. That restrict L amino acids and D amino acids from reacting in certain kinds of ways. That's a relevant point. I already addressed that point, Tony.
Yeah, and you, Tony, you've already said this. So so now he's on repeat. I think his needle is like stuck.
This is amusing. Keep it up.
Tony, advance your mind to an 8-track tape. I don't know if anybody remembers it. And get rid of the phonograph because your needle is stuck on the groove. Happened all the time, especially on Bob Dylan records. Anyway, I'm old. Okay, Boomer.
Kind of following.
I follow that argument, but it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Well, what part? What part's not?
The part where you think we've proven that abiogenesis is impossible. What experiment has proven that?
Well, no, not prove it.
Okay, and I didn't understand Smokey totally, that he was saying it's the most logical, probable, and plausible conclusion. I was thinking that he was saying that he proved it to himself somehow, that science proved it. Because it's totally foreign to me to think that way.
Again, what we've demonstrated and through science is that naturally, without any intelligence whatsoever, you will never get life. That's what science has shown.
Okay, no, he just made the claim, didn't he?
He did.
He did.
Whatsoever and through science is that naturally, without any intelligence whatsoever, you will never get life. That's what science has shown. That's a different
claim.
You, in order to get any type of life or even the basic building blocks of life, you need intelligence and power.
Did you see my antenna?
The thing is Tony just switched claims.
Yeah.
Because originally he just said natural processes can't create life.
No, this was
and now he changed to natural processes can only form life under the direction and under the assistance of an intelligent agent.
And he says science proved it.
Yep, those are two different claims. Which one are we going with?
So Tony just said that it was, the most logical, plausible, and he wasn't claiming certainty. And then he goes ahead and doubles down and claims certainty. So he did do it. So I was justified in my misunderstanding of what he said originally. All you need to show is that many steps involved in abiogenesis is possible. Then you don't need a God. That God brings chaos. Who created Gaia? Who created the world? Yes. Good naturalist Ian is. And let's see, what else? God has the same amount of evidence as any other creation myth, and that's a fact. If it is plausible that a God did it, which God did it? And of course they hate that argument. Smokey really hates that argument. Is Anthony, does he have anything to say?
He's said some things right below.
But he's not saying anything new.
He's on repeat.
He's stuck on this track.
I think we've officially got him on repeat now. He just makes the same points again and again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah, he does this through all of his chats, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like my Bob Dylan record, Bringing It All Back Home. That album, it kept repeating because I played it so much.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have shown that steps are plausible, and the idea is that if you can show that the steps are possible sequentially, then the whole thing is possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
But certain things correct. There aren't any steps. Didn't he already say that the Miller-Urey experiment was considered valid, and that produced amino acids, which is a step in that process?
They didn't like the amino acids, and it produced other things. Which is exactly the point. It produced a whole lot of things. I don't think Tony likes the Miller-Urey.
Oh, now it's something new. Take all the chemicals and amino acids you want to start building something. Go on, claim your Nobel Prize immutable.
Wait, take all the chemicals and amino acids. Does that mean we get ribosomes?
Yeah. Can we have ribosomes?
Anthony, I've already made my claim very clear for the beginning of this video. I don't think abiogenesis is a functional theory. I think there are still holes that need to be plugged with it. I think what currently we have is our models of how certain organic molecules can be formed naturalistically under a variety of different conditions. And currently, what we have an issue with now is figuring out, okay, we have lipid world, we have experiments that demonstrate certain constraints and certain important parameters for the lipid world, and the same thing for RNA world and metabolism burst. Now what we need to do is we need to see which of these are relatable to the early Earth, what are the functional constraints on this, and how do we unify these mechanisms together?
Yep.
Because those are the things that get us to a cell.
Yeah, we got a lot of papers to read. I would like to find some papers on racemic mixtures of amino acids and what kinds of polypeptides they form, and exactly what kind of structures they form, because there may well be other, like I said, there may well be other things besides alpha helices, beta sheets, and the other, standard ones. So pudding for brains. Okay, we'll just skip that one. You have Ian Chen, who has something to say. Just made from simpler parts, and those parts made from molecules which form by under defined rules. So if you got created cells, he's judging using the same process we're trying to discover. Yep.
That's correct. And currently, we don't know all the mechanisms that allow prebiotic cells to divide and transfer information and things like that. That's an area of active research. And nobody understands how that works yet.
Creationists are saying he magicked it into existence. That's the most plausible thing that they can come up with. And they want us to stop looking at our test tubes. So,
You see, magic passes Occam's razor for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Okay, let's see, where are we at here? We're still with Smokey.
And now, granted, I kind of let it slide a little bit in the whole assumptions of what prebiotic Earth looks like. We do have scientific experimentation and deduction to help us understand what prebiotic Earth did look like. Now, granted, we're not super.
How much do we know?
We know that there wasn't a lot of oxygen, meaning free oxygen, in the early Earth.
So it was reducing?
So it's fairly reducing. We know that there was either the molecule that may have formed in abundance was, I think it's something like formaldehyde, which may have been converted to water later on, or it was always filled with water.
Yeah, but there's a lot we don't know, but I'd like to dig up some papers on that. That would be what, geology?
Geology and geochemistry or something like that.
We got to figure out what to search Google Scholar for that information, see what they do know.
RNA world is plagued with problems under prebiotic conditions, you delusional morons. Yes,
it's not worth
it has problems. Why don't you name a few if you're so aware of the topic, Anthony?
Anthony's on repeat. In fact, he's literally on repeat. Like, literally. He used okay, check this out. I think the man is melting down. Okay. That's almost exactly the same thing.
That's pretty much the same thing.
Same thing. I like Ian's comment better. That sums up. That sums up what Anthony's saying, and what probably Tony's or Smokey's saying here.
On all of it, but through paleontology and science, we have been able to ascertain basic thresholds of what prebiotic Earth would have looked like.
Not really.
And this is why we're making these arguments and seeing when the chemists are stepping into these experiments to try and manifest even the basic building blocks of life, they're not keeping to the paradigm of what prebiotic Earth would have looked like in order to do these experiments. They're stepping outside the scope of what prebiotic Earth would have even looked like in order to manifest these basic building blocks. Therefore, by deductive argument, are proving the essentiality of intelligence inside the process of the construct of life.
Okay, so you would have them stop doing that?
Doing what?
If it made progress, it's not making progress.
No. What they're doing is fine for what they're doing, but if they think that they're proving somehow,
Yeah, he's saying we're not making progress, so we should stop, right?
Oh Lord!
how of a naturalistic origin of life in doing this, no, there's no philosophical standard behind that to justify that. In fact, they're proving the opposite. I want them to keep doing it because it is showing us and giving us more information of how complex and how difficult it is to construct life, which just, I believe, gives more evidence to our camp. So no.
Which is the whole point of John Maddox's channel, is to find new complex things and standing for truth too. And like, oh, we found another complex thing, therefore God, another complex thing, therefore God, therefore God. I mean, yeah, they want us to keep coming up with complex things. And they just discovered science, what, about 10 years ago, these fools?
Apparently I'm dishonest because I'm dishonest because I already have I've already agreed with your point, and I've clarified already why that point isn't exactly relevant.
You know, you specified two dishonest, delusional clowns, so.
Let's see. God is male. Does he have a penis? Surely his function for procreation and waste removal are redundant. Yeah.
You know, the whole made in God's image thing, if you're going to take the whole Bible literally, then either God's an ape or he made apes just to like fuck with people.
Yeah.
Or like half God. A chimpanzee is just half God.
Well, but remember though that the Bible says that God is not the author of confusion, which makes things even more weird.
Sal Cordova claims that God made chimpanzees like humans so that, and mice, you know, with the same metabolism, so that we could use them to do our medical experiments with. We wouldn't have to use other humans. Well, I think that God made philosophers of science and creationists so that we could do medical experiments on them, right? my whole series, God, Daddy, why did God make X? That's what he made them for. Am I being harsh? Perhaps. Yeah, two clowns have no answers and have solved nothing. Yeah, okay. Arn Ra, they're going to pick on Arn Ra. Anyway, I want to, let's go ahead of my seed argument.
Sure, absolutely. I want them to keep pushing.
It's just not making. It's not making progress.
Better for us. It's always better for us when they discover more. So
right, the target. The best way to put it is the target gets pushed back further and further for the naturalistic camp. It's not working under prebiotic conditions, and your best argument is, well, we just don't know the early Earth conditions. You can say that for the next 1,000 years. That doesn't make a compelling case for abiogenesis. It makes things worse.
So. They really believe that you know, that they're gaining more and more ground, that creationism has come into this new age where all of a sudden all the evidence is for creationism. If you listen to their dialogue on SFT's channel, Praise That I Am and Maddox, that's all they talk about is how creationism is like entered this new age. It's just amazing.
Yeah. I'm calling me skeptical.
Yeah. Which reaction was Foz talking about?
The UV radiation on the Sutherland experiment, where the chemist has to stop and start the experiment, or else the molecules get destroyed. So these protocols have to be executed at a precise time, and the only way that can be done is through intelligent agency. You have to have a chemist actually do this out in nature.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Huh?
Answer my question. What were they making? What was the product?
RNA, or we can go. You want to play it again? I think it was at 124.
No, I just wanted. I don't want to hear Foz. I want to say
it was the RNA molecules. They were manipulating. They were engineering RNA, and in order to get.
So Foz's example, by the way, Speed, just because I did look a little backtracking for it, so I have a little extra context. He is talking about a scenario inside the actual RNA world experiments where they already have, you know, the very, very specific amino acids and chains and all that stuff. And they're trying to do experiments to assemble RNA. And they're finding out that the methodology to get there is so specific that it can't possibly have manifested on early prebiotic Earth. I mean, certainly if we're assuming that environment is close to what we've anticipated.
So wait a minute. Specificity means that something is impossible because it needs to occur in a very special kind of way?
Yep.
What? Okay, I'm going to drop out because honestly, I've had fun with this, but God, these guys are annoying.
Can't handle it anymore. Don't you want to get to the part where Tony quits?
With the way he's behaving in live chat, we're never going to get there.
Well, we don't have to listen. He's just saying the same shit over and over again.
And also has maintained somewhat consistency. Any of this RNA world stuff could have happened naturalistically.
Oh, let's see. Okay, let's go to
The
this.
experiment proved one little node.
Okay, here's what I'm trying to tell him about the graph theory and basically what we're trying to do, trying to explain the science to the method to him.
The experiment proved one little node.
Okay, graph theory. You have little circles, they're connected by a node, right? Edge.
Okay.
Or by an edge.
Graph theory? What is it? No. What, dude, you wow. You don't know what you're talking about.
Way,
do you?
Will you fucking let me explain it to you?
A graph.
Work with me a little bit and try to understand what I'm.
Yeah.
What
The
I'm
problem is, Speed. You know what the problem is? You don't understand chemistry at all, and all you're presenting is denial, and I don't know. That's it.
Okay.
That's your whole argument.
What don't I understand about chemistry exactly? Where have I?
The highly manipulated, contrived environment.
He's repeating himself again. So then let's see. ID, when and where. Okay, Smokey tries to moderate. No evidence for the natural. Yeah, okay, this is where they challenge me for evidence. And I start telling them about seeds. That basically faith in seeds. And then I'm trying to tell them that your evidence for the natural is what happens naturally in front of us today. And that is evidence for naturalism. No one can deny naturalism. Do you agree with that, Immutable? I mean,
Yep.
Historically, you can look back and say, oh, well, something weird might have happened in the past. But right now, today, in our lives, no one can deny that natural shit makes biology happen.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Process. Do I see intelligent design?
Where did you get the seed from in the first place?
Yeah.
Where did the seed come from?
No, you have to put a bracket. We have to bracket that for a minute. Okay, I'm just talking about.
No, because you have no argument for abiogenesis other than just to mock ours. That's it.
Can you just stop fucking interrupting me for a few minutes?
You don't have an argument,
let him
Speed.
talk. Let him talk.
Yeah.
Let him talk.
Okay, when I put the seed in the ground and it creates a broccoli plant, that is evidence for naturalism. That happened. You do agree that happened completely with naturalistic chemistry, molecules bumping into each other, right?
No.
Okay, notice they will not admit to it. They will not admit to a seed turning into broccoli being entirely natural. Why?
Where did you get the seed from? The information to begin with.
No, we're not talking about history. We're talking about what we can observe right now. You guys love that.
You got to start now because you got to explain where the seed came from.
You're not going to answer my question. Is there intelligent design to create a broccoli plant from a seed?
Once life is there, yeah, it can grow and turn into a broccoli plant.
Intervention. I shouldn't have said design. Is there intelligent?
Okay. Well, what I'm getting at is that where did the first cell come from to begin with? Speed. You're not answering anything.
You're evading. You're not answering my question.
Yes, the broccoli would grow. Yes, the broccoli will start its process of growth.
All right, hold on.
Okay, was there intelligent intervention
when the seed is already alive and growing? That's what you're asking me?
From a seed, was there intelligent intervention? I put a dry seed in the ground, I water it. Was there intelligent intervention between that and the broccoli?
Well, the processes take over. But you got to say, where did the seed come from, though, in the first place?
Well, you don't have to know where the seed came from. It could have been dropped here by aliens or God. Here's where I fucked up. Don't you think?
Yeah,
I mean,
yourself there,
but you're not wrong.
No, I'm not. That wasn't what we were talking about. I was trying to get them to leave they want to keep rushing every conversation all the way back 4 billion years ago. They're running across the field with the goalposts. They do this continually. You try to talk to them about what's going on right now, And they don't want to focus on that. They don't want to focus on the miracle that is life that happens in front of us every day that is entirely natural. And that's the point I was trying to make. And so I said, fine, let's assume aliens are God. I don't give a shit. It's not what I'm talking about. And then we go on to what is supernatural. And then I try to get back online. And Smokey makes the point that right here about scientists shooting their mouths off. And this is what happens when they go to Scientific American and they say, oh, yeah, we've created life in a test tube, and scientists are shooting their mouth off. And then what do we have here? Pick? I'm not sure what I'm talking about.
Prebiotic Earth.
Oh, I see.
That the state of the sun, I don't know what that is. The state of the sun at this time was not going to do something this specific.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's nonsensical.
But anyway, where did
and it's testable, repeatable. So then it's not.
Where did it go? Maybe sense of naturalism would be putting a seed into the ground, and it grows without any super. Could have been dropped here by aliens or God.
This debate's over. This is a clown. All right, Smokey. Have a good day, brother. God bless.
Yep, debate's over. I didn't know it was a debate. I thought we were having a discussion about methodology and science.
All right, now that Tony's dropping out, I'm going to leave because
yeah,
right.
I'm going to have to rest because if we want to do another Maddox video tonight, I'm going to.
Yeah, and the other thing is the rest of this is just me and Smokey, basically Smokey trying to get me into naturalism, and I didn't want to go there, and I just eventually, gave up. We just agreed to not talk about it. And for a while, I did get him back into the discussion, but never really got anywhere. And Smokey was saying that the sun couldn't set and rise, apparently, that UV couldn't be on and off, and all of that stuff. So that was the whole point of this, I guess, was to discuss to defend what they're doing in abiogenesis and why they're doing why they're doing controlled conditions,
Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder, aren't they doing like the same thing but opposite? Oh, Immutable just left.
Yeah, he did. Yep.
What was I gonna say? Oh, but they're doing the same thing but opposite for like us tonight or whatever. I wonder if they're actually gonna address any of your clarifications.
No.
Or
They'll
if they're
destroy.
just gonna look at quotes of you from out of context without any explanation.
Yeah, they're going to concentrate on pudding.
They're gonna play that God alien quote.
Right, and
sure.
pudding and my meth lab quote. That's all they're going to talk about. And it's just, they're not going, and then they're going to go on about abiogenesis, and then they're going to tell you about, they're going to pull this numbers game where they multiply the probabilities, of chemicals.
Oh, yeah, that one thing of like 100 amino acid protein, the probabilities of it arising or something.
20 to 100 or whatever, 20 to, they already did that a little bit on Maddox's channel last night, so it's pretty much useless. But anyway, that, I guess overall, well, the interesting thing is that they will make the same accusation against us that we read the papers. And then Maddox, he's been starting this rhetoric on his channel lately that just because I get a different impression of the paper than you do, that doesn't mean I'm wrong. Well, I don't. When you read a scientific paper, do you think that there's subjective
interpretation?
Right?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the papers, oftentimes they'll do a little bit of, could have been this way, could have been that way.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there is some interpretation to an extent. Like a paper that we see, like, for example, let's say like turtles are now grouped with archosaurs instead of lepidosaurs or something like that. For a creationist, that would be, it's overturning phylogeny, it's destroying everything. And for us, it's like, okay, it moved the branch around.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I guess there's interpretation in that way, but
and there's
I think the scientists would generally agree with the people writing the papers would generally agree that it's not, exploding the tree of life.
Yeah. Well, you've got a slant toward paleontology. What maybe you could look into what we know about early Earth environments and stuff, and I don't know.
Yeah. The problem is, like, you know, whenever somebody tries to bring up like abiogenesis or something, it's not within the realm of evolution, right? It doesn't matter, you know, using your seed analogy, it doesn't matter if God like planted the first seed on Earth. It doesn't matter if aliens planted the first seed on Earth. Okay, we know what's happened since then, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, let's say we prove the plausibility of abiogenesis, which is fairly likely. You know, even from a creationist perspective, that's not necessarily what happened, because we're never going to, you know, this argument's better for like the were you there than anything they ever say about paleontology, because no, we weren't. You know what I mean? But it's still just like, it doesn't work. I'm at a loss for words. I don't know.
Yeah, I am too. Let me see if I can share a screen here one more time.
Yep.
I just wanted to go over some of Richard's stuff. This is the Richard Research Group, that guy that they quoted, the little illustration that they put up. And he is an investigator, investigating the evolutionary role of RNA. That's what he does. He's got a pretty good paper here, or article about him. And then this is from reasons.org. And this is Hugh Ross, who's is he a creationist or an ideator? Hugh Ross, do you know?
I have no clue.
Okay. Anyway, Richard came up with, let's see, was it right here? Let's see, creation questions, talk origins. Trying to think of where he came up with that. Pan his thumb. God, I don't have it. Oh my God, I must have got rid of it. Anyway, Richards came up with this article, and I had it in a tab, and then I lost the damn thing. But there was an article that they quoted from, and then Richards did it. Oh, he did a paper, I think. Let me try to find that in just a minute here, if you give me a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. And I cannot find it. Oh my God. Oh no, that's Pages. I'm sorry. Okay, fellows, we got sarcopterology.pdf. Thank you for that, by the way. Okay, Richard. Let's see. So this is the paper that they quoted from. And they quoted this part right here. After all, it's not easy to, you know, in the red part.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking up here about the hand of God, basically divine intervention. The term hand of God was coined. And I think this is by Clements Richard. But he's talking here about there had been manual intervention, and there has been an understandable interest of the player, not to admit it, organic chemists, if not all experimentalists in the field of prebiotic chemistry, are faced with a similar dilemma. We do our best to perform experiments that we believe reenact possible steps of prebiotic evolution, but we know that we need to intervene manually to obtain meaningful results. Simply mixing chemicals and watching for a living system to appear from the broth seems unreasonable to me. So they quoted from this paper, and then that was my criticism of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simply mixing chemicals, okay. This approach has never worked, and it is not expected to work, at least not if one is limited to the lifetime of a human, let alone a duration of a funding period or a PhD thesis. So what is a reasonable level of intervention by the experimentalist? And he goes on to explain that you would not get published if you did not control your experiment. So, you know, he goes on to explain the position, and that's what the paper is about. And then he does this, you know, one little clip here that they quote mined, basically. So, I mean, this is it. What to do. Anyway, it goes on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This guy, Kenneth Samples, I had not run into him before. He's all truth is God's truth. He's one of those guys, so he's on my radar. Reasons to believe. And he mentions Clement. I think that's where they got it from.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know what all this is. This is a site. This is about lessons learned from 25 years of battling creationists, Scientologists, and fundamentalists online. So it's a good slideshow to watch at some point. I don't.
The Gish Gallop.
Yeah. So he goes through a whole bunch of different things here. So it looks kind of good. It looks kind of cool. The Case Against Creationism, Abusing Science. I don't have that book. That's a new book.
No, stop it.
Oh, I gotta go order it. Let's see. What do we got? The Counter Creationist Handbook. That's another one. Oh my God, I gotta go on Amazon right after this.
Oh my God.
Be honest, admit and correct your mistakes. Creation Evolution. It's a great seal, but is it science? What the? Anyway, I'll see if I can get a link for some of this stuff. I'm going to put links for this in the description so you can look at this. So basically, Telling Lies for God. Oh my God, there's a whole bunch of books to order here. I have to go.
Do you just prefer to get them hardback, or what is your objection to getting like a Kindle or something?
Well, I've been having to get a Kindle because I need to clip things from them. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm just going to start doing it with Kindle. But yeah, I do like hardcover books, as you can see by looking around my room. And that is, it's costing me too much, and I have to slow down here. So
yeah, I
have to contain myself. Then Panda's Thumb. Panda's Thumb can't be reached. Why? What happened to Panda's Thumb?
Is the whole website down, or is it just that link is invalid?
I don't know if pandasthumb.org. Okay, this is Talk Origins, which was run by, I think, this Taro Sand and Bob Shadowald, and they both died in around 2000. And that's why Talk Origins is an excellent resource that everybody should go to. And then Panda's Thumb is apparently down. But I mean, that's kind of where they went next. So that one doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And this is a creationist site. This is a map it's got a whole bunch of links on there. And then Origin of Life, Abiogenesis by Chemical Evolution. This is, I think, more, I'm not sure what the validity of this site is. And that's about it. So, but
yeah,
we got
Origin of Life researchers. Another problem I had, like I said, I caught the very end of your discussion. This was something that Smokey was getting pretty pissed about. But he kept saying like you were making arguments from authority with regards to like abiogenesis and stuff. And it's I don't think, first of all, that creationists should be using the argument from like calling other people out for using an argument from authority,
because they do it.
And then also just simply like, is it an argument from authority to assume that someone who spends their entire life researching something and definitely knows more about it than you is like a good faith actor and is probably, if they believe something, then it's probably reasonable to also believe it?
Yeah, or at least listen to them, and evaluate it. But I mean, excuse me.
Oh, you're good.
This argument these books that I have, those are all authorities,
Yeah.
What else?
But they have the credentials to be authorities and the experiences to be authorities,
I mean, I'm reading as fast as I can, but I can't read it all.
Yeah. That's always been just my stance on abiogenesis. Like, I didn't come around to abiogenesis till like after I left Christianity. And for me, it was one of those things. It was like, well, this is something that would have had to happen if there is no God, and life would just have to arise naturally. And also, if these explanations are good enough for people who will spend their entire careers researching it, then why isn't it good enough for me and my tiny brain? You know?
Yeah. I don't know. Mostly I was hoping to actually like drill down into it with Tony and get to this discussion about I'm wondering why my reflector's not working. It is actually up, but for some reason, Michael's MacBook Pro. I just want to show you something.
Okay.
1826, and it's probably pretty boring for anybody still watching, but okay. And I got a feeling I screwed up here, but I may not have. Okay, stop it. It's not listening to me. I don't know why. Okay, I'm going to share a screen again, and hopefully this won't crash on me this time. Well, let's see. Share screen. And this is the screen I want to share. And I will hit the share button and try to go full screen with that. Anyway, I just wanted to make the point that, this is like up here. This is like a graph, right? With nodes and edges. Mm-hmm. And up here we have a tremendous amount of basically prebiotic conditions, right? And we got a 4.5 million or billion year timeline. And then these prebiotic conditions, like many of them, resulted in some node. And then what we're doing, every abiogenesis experiment just deals with one node. And that means we have to control that condition exactly. And then we get this condition. So it goes from A to B. And then we slowly piece together this massive network. But you can imagine how many nodes we are going to have to trace out in order to figure out anything, like just one valid path for abiogenesis. We're going to start here, and we're going to go through this entire line, and we're going to end up down here. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is the goalpost, right? But, I mean, it's going to take trillions of dollars and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of man years in order to figure out what is going on here. And the reason that it has become important right now is pharmaceutical companies are very interested in these self-creating molecules.
Yeah.
And, and so that's where we're at. But that was what I wanted to show them. And that's where I came up with, or that was to be the topic, and we never actually got to talk about it. I mentioned graph theory and Tony rage quit, and that was the end of it. So, I mean,
yeah. And I mean, the whole process. Oh, what were you saying?
It helps me to draw something, even though my illustrations are crap. If I engage my drawing mind, then I can talk more coherently.
No, that's very fair. It's a good way to organize your thoughts. I sometimes struggle with that because I'll forget to jot something down in my notebook, and then I'll think about it later and be like, God, what was that one thing I was trying to say earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also the whole nodal process that you're talking about, it becomes way, way more, or at least it can become, I don't think it necessarily has to be, but it becomes way more linear once you have self-replication, because obviously, you're not dealing with evolution necessarily at this point, because it's still probably not life.
Right.
But just by way of, I guess, natural selection, like the things that are best at replication will replicate more often.
Yeah.
And there will they'll make up a larger percentage of the composition of whatever solution they're in, right? So that's just, you only have to get the first couple steps, and once the ball's kind of rolling, then I feel like it becomes an inevitable point. Although I don't think abiogenesis is necessarily inevitable. I just think once you get to a certain line, it's pretty much inevitable.
Yeah. I think with the conditions of the early Earth, I think we're going to find a number of pathways, like thousands of them, possibilities, and that we are going to show that it was inevitable. And if that's the case, then we're not alone in the universe. But then on the other hand, it may have been just a really, really crazy chance event, Then we're alone. How sad.
Well, I honestly, I feel like if we are completely alone in the universe, that would be much stronger argument. That would be a pretty strong argument for creationism, at least in my mind, right? Or at least like special creation, because why would this one random rock on a wing of the Milky Way galaxy have this very unique thing? I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I still wouldn't be convinced. I still believe that the 1 in a 10 to the 140th possibility could happen. So I mean, it could have happened.
Well, I think, like I said, I don't think it would necessarily convince me, but it would definitely be a strong argument and cause me to reevaluate some things.
Right.
I would just be more surprised if we are alone. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The inevitable, thing would be a lot more convincing for all of us, I guess. And it would be nice to know we're not alone. But I just want to, before we close out, I want to mention I was watching The Warrior Nun. And,
of course.
And I'm on the 8th episode. I think it's a really great series. But anyway, there was a point where, and this may be some spoilers. So if anybody hasn't watched it, I won't give away too much. But there was a point where one of the characters was going through an arc of not believing, and then there was all this kind of it took place at a church, and there's some things that happened, and it was really interesting the way they wrote it. But at this time, I was sitting there with tears in my eyes, wanting her to start believing in God, and I'm an atheist, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you know what feeling I'm talking about? It's that feeling of awe you get when you get into like a religious setting or you watch a religious movie.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that's a very interesting and kind of different topic, but I would love to go into that sometime about like religious experiences and.
Yeah, I had like a grand mal religious experience when I was 15 that I would love to talk about. We could do a hangout on that or do it live. But the point I wanted to make is that with that feeling that I had of wanting her to believe in God, why would I not want myself? Why would I hide from God? I mean, if there was a possibility, if I had any inkling, I mean, it's a great, it was just a great feeling. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
Bring it on. I mean, come on down, dude. Show me. But it's really odd, and we're all capable of feeling that deep spiritual feeling, and it's valid. And I feel it all the time as an atheist or as a materialist Buddhist or a Buddhist. And I feel bad that people have to have a belief attached to it, because I think the belief kind of screws up the feeling. Yeah. But yeah, we'll do a hangout on that. But let's end this.
Okay.
Okay, we're ending broadcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, Ian.